And here we are. We're back for another edition of God Hockey. Today is episode 11. It's episode Mark Messier, or for Toronto fans, you might consider it episode Gary Lehman. And today joining me is a very special guest. You might call him a man of mystery, like the 80s wrestler on TV donning the mask, hailing from parts unknown. No one is really quite sure who this mystery man is. But he does come from a long line of goalies with three names like Marc-Andre Fleury and Jean-Sébastien Giguère. I present to you Goalie Gear Nerd. Welcome
buddy,
to the
show. How are you? Hey, thanks. That was I've heard a couple of intros. I've been lucky to do a couple podcasts like this, and I got to be honest with you, that's probably the best one so far. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I've been working on it a little. So as the Goalie Gear Nerd, you are front and center. You're the one out there trying to dig for the tidbits, for the information, for all the little things. We see you active on social media and being a bit of a secret seeker. What brought you to the passion of goaltending, and how did you get started on this journey?
Yeah, so it's like a lot of goalies, my attraction to the game and the position was the gear. My mom was a big sports nut, and she collected hockey and baseball cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a picture or a card, of it was Kirk McLean when he was with the Canucks, those black Vaughn pads, the tan blocker. And I saw that, very young, and I was like, I have no idea what the sport is. I have no idea what the hell this guy's doing, but he looks awesome.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, I want to be a part of that.
I want to be that.
I want to be that. And so I started getting into kind of the game. And back in my day, and I'm going to age myself here a bit, it was the time of equipment catalogs that would get sent to your house, from the Gunzos and the M Sports and the Oceans Hockey and the Don Simmons, et cetera, later on. And I would collect those and just carry them around with me everywhere we went. We'd go to a restaurant, I'd sit in the booth and I'd thumb through them. We're in the car, I'm looking through them. And I just kind of was absorbed by the nuances between the gear and things like that. And just kind of this weird passion that kind of grew over time, playing the position, my own gear and things like that.
Yeah.
And then when I was 16, it seemed like an obvious transition. I got a job working at a hockey shop and found out how obscure of an expertise goalie equipment is.
Yep.
Found out quickly that in that context, at least, if you knew what you were talking about, parents that had to drop a lot of coin really appreciated that. And then later on, kind of as things evolved, it's created kind of Goalie Gear Nerd is kind of a brain dump. It kind of was meant really at the genesis as, hey, I have this, albeit exceptionally obscure knowledge, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And maybe in the world of social media, maybe there might be 40, 30, 10 people that actually share this passion. Yeah. So, hey, why don't I throw some of this stuff out there online and see if I can connect with those people, and end up finding that the community was far larger than I ever expected. And then as many times happens, it kind of took on a life of its own.
Yeah, it's pretty cool what you've been able to do. I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to sort of crown you as the phantom of the rink, or maybe if I need to be concerned that you're somehow going to turn into some type of a Batman style villain here in the future, if it all goes horribly wrong, and maybe if you let in too many goals one night, and who knows where that could take us. But for now, anyway, you're on the side of good, and you are using your powers for good, and I think everybody does enjoy your content. I do like to check it out from time to time just to see what's going on. So
I appreciate that.
Maybe we'll get into a bit of an equipment question then. I think this is something you've actually followed quite a bit, is to tuck or not to tuck.
Yeah, good question. And something that, and I need to do an update on this. I created a database for goaliegearnerd.com, little plug,
yeah.
For all the pros the data is a couple of seasons old, and we're in the process of updating it again. All the different NHL goalies, if you've spent a minute playing the NHL or you're on an NHL roster, you're listed, and it had something like 45 different data fields. And one of them was the tuck versus no tuck question. And I would love to tell you, I could remember off the top of my head what the data showed. To your question, personally, I'm a tucker. I like it. It's a little bit more, if you have the right pants, they're, good barrel, and you can put the suspenders over. For me, someone who very much relies upon movement rather than coverage, that I rather feel I want to make sure that the gear is in sync with me, that is moving with me, that it's up against me. That said, I've done both ways, and I like the other way as well. And it's nice that a lot of chest protectors now are meant to go either way. But what's your proclivity?
I'm definitely also a tucker. So back in, it would have been the 94-95 season, my family on my dad's side comes from the East Coast of Canada in Prince Edward Island. So he bought a place there and we moved. And at the time, the Ottawa Senators farm team was playing in Charlottetown, and they basically, just as an outreach to fans or whatever, they would travel to the various hockey organizations, and they would do hold a practice at the home rinks for all the teams. And then they would sort of do a bit of a meet and greet. And so they were in sort of our room for what my team would usually use. And so we were there, and we always just hung out by the room, and out comes Jean-Francois Labbé. If you recall, he had played a bit with the Rangers and the Avalanche, but he was obviously an Ottawa product at this time. And I see him coming out of the dressing room holding his jersey, and he's got his chest protector tucked in his pants with suspenders over top. And he had a little clasp sort of holding it together, holding the straps together in the middle. And I was blown away. I didn't even realize this was a thing. I immediately started doing it. I was wearing a John Brown pant at the time, so they were ample enough to fit my, I believe it was a Cooper Legends chest protector to tuck in. Nice. And I sort of haven't looked back. It's very difficult when you're fitting someone to just say, no, we'll just tuck this in, or don't, so I tend to let it evolve for my customers. Most junior pants, of course, don't really allow for it that greatly. Many have tighter waists, and the introduction of the internal belts don't always really make for room. And then you've got to fit it all in with a large goalie jock for the kids as well. And so then what ends up happening is you don't have the room. But as they get older, I tend to show them, or at least if they ask. And I'm definitely a suspenders over guy as well. It's always been the way I've done it ever since. And you get the pant to float. It's comfortable. If you want the chest protector to be close to the body, it stays in place. And again, the suspenders allow you to just sort of blow out the pant and just kind of let it hang. But that's how I started. Are you fully into stretchy toe ties, no toe ties?
Yeah, I'm very much into the stretch toe ties. Okay. I'm a big, again, part of my just nerd brain is really constantly, specifically as it relates to pads, for a very, very, very long time, kind of constantly looking at the strapping, all up and down from toe to top binding, going, why, what do I need to want this pad to do? And leg pads are so unique in the sense that you want responsiveness and you want rotation. And there's kind of like dual mandates of leg pads that basically are asking the pad to do two very different things.
Right.
So when it comes to toe ties, I immediately kind of saw when they started becoming more common, immediately I thought, now we're solving the problem of skate laces. Static skate laces, you get them real tight on the toe, you get responsiveness, you're losing rotation. You put a bunch of slack in them, you got the rotation, but you're losing responsiveness because you're kind of dragging the pad with you. Yeah. That elastic toe tie, it's going to be the best of both worlds. And, even I've found being a prolific elastic toe tie user, there is nuance even then to, you can still control the tension on them. And I noticed, like, when I skated on Monday night, I was skating in a pair of E-Flex 5s with the standard toe tie, and I realized I cinched them too tight. I could feel it on the ice. I was like, I'm not getting quite, it's just a little too much, and I'm not, it's like my boot's not moving as freely as it should be. I was coaching the next night, put the same pads on, adjusted them just a little bit, and I was like, yep, that's perfect. It's exactly what I needed to do. So it's still the people that say, oh, elastic toe ties, it's not enough, adjustability. Now, I think you can get it. So yeah, I'm a big convert and proponent, I should say, of elastic toe ties.
And are you knotting these up, or are you lengthening them or lengthening or shortening the distance they travel on the skate to get that little bit extra movement?
Yeah, I tend to find myself lengthening them over tightening them, because it's one or the other. I want that boot to come as down to the ice. Yeah. And I will take, if I have to lean on one versus the other, I feel like also a lot of the responsiveness of the pad is driven up the leg to the top of the calf area. And so I will err on the side of a little bit of extra slack at the toe, because I want to make sure that responsiveness comes from that top calf area. It's aided by the toe tie, but the toe tie, in my opinion, is really helping with that rotation piece. You get too much tension there. We talked about this. You've been in the industry for a very, very, very long time, so I know you've gotten this question before. I'll have goalies come and ask me, hey, I go down in a butterfly, and the tops of my thigh rises in my butterfly just are coming off the ice just a little bit. And I'm getting, there's a little bit of gap, and it's always a toe tie issue. The toe tie is too tight. Almost always, because you're getting that, it's that
toe tie bottom strap.
Bingo, exactly right. Something to the bottom of the pad that is pulling down, that tension towards the bottom of the pad is causing the top to, equal and opposite reaction, kind of pulling off the ice a little bit. Yeah. So again, I will err on this side, just a little bit of extra slack on the toe, which again is what I was lamenting Monday night in the middle of my my shinny game, going, dude, you should have just taken 2 more seconds to concentrate. Now I'm feel like I'm a little too much tension at the toe.
Yeah, I've yet to fully utilize the elastic ties. I think still using skate lace, and I think really what it is I've worn so many pads, and I've done them so many different ways that for my own play, not necessarily what I would recommend to anybody else, but I think I've got it down to exactly where I like it to be. I know exactly how I want the pad to move. I give myself exactly that amount of space by knotting up the laces, and I do a knot chain. I don't make one knot and then a knot further down, and I don't like that that sort of floppiness in between. Yeah. So I give myself a little bit of a chain, enough that I know that when I'm down, I can sort of tap my toes on the ice as I'm down, so I know I can reach. But also, if I go farther than that, I'm able to pull the pad with me, take the pad with me. I'll eventually end up, probably my next set, I'll probably just throw the elastic ones on. I know when and even that being said, I know when I fit customers, for example, in one of the new Bauer pads, they have a little bit of a stretchier cord.
Yeah.
I'd say Brian's is probably right around in the middle, but if I go to a CCM pad, the string that they use is not quite as stretchy. And I think on some of the models, even previously, they were a little bit shorter. So now I've got to figure out how I can get them best to. Do you go through the toe, through the middle, then over top? Do you go through the back hole over top? And it's just it becomes a little bit of that. And once you've got that, obviously it's great. I do tend to like the ones that have a little more pull to them, that aren't as tight. Because obviously I don't want you going down. I don't want your body weight taking you to the ice and then the toe tie lifting your foot, you know? Exactly. And that's been my sort of love-hate relationship with the product that we carry. Now I'm blanking on it.
Is it Pro Laces?
No. It's it attaches to the pad and then it hooks on the skate. Oh God, why can't I?
Toe hooks?
Toe hooks. Yeah. Sorry, toe hooks. Yeah. Should have been simple. Yeah. Is that the actual elastic part is very small. So it really can only stretch a certain distance. And the pieces themselves are also fairly short. So if you're in a senior pad in particular, but even an intermediate pad for many, you can't get that. You can't get your skate all the way down. And I know they're super easy to do up for kids, and it's a great idea with and then it becomes the sort of the practical application. Could it be a little bit longer and things like that? But beyond that, I do really like those. But sometimes I think, especially for a really light kid, you can't always get that. But I think most pads now are coming with something that stretches anyway. So I think the need for those is probably more based on parents wanting something to be a little bit easier even.
Yeah, as you're getting there with 5 minutes to go. And and as when I coach, and I coach a lot of younger kids, I can tell you how many times I've had to, on the ice, some coach brings over a goalie, or I look over and they go, he's falling down all the time. I look down and it's a toe hook that is, come undone. I go, and then I got it. Like,
or even just a lace they're stepping on.
Oh gosh, yeah, and it's not specific to toe hooks per se. And I was on the ice on Tuesday, and it's the common. Right next to me, I stand up and I turn and I look and at the parent next to me. I think the goalie pads are on the wrong leg. You want to flip that around. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, yelling at the kid, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing for that. If a parent doesn't know, especially if a parent's new for hockey, and as much as like our store is like very much a center for competitive hockey players and the higher level customers that on some levels we do sort of cater to, we get a lot of, everybody who's a goalie has a first time of being a goalie. So, and if your mom or dad wasn't a goalie or wasn't even a hockey player, they just don't know how stuff goes on. And then it's like, I'll have a kid with a pad laying down flat, and then mom and dad or the kid just starts doing up something, and I'll just say, well, do you want to do up the toe first? And then they'll say, oh, well, we just don't know how to do it. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm here for. Okay, good. Yeah. Let me show you now. And also I try to get everybody to make sure, like, to never be afraid to ask, because, otherwise someone else will overlook it, and that. So it comes down to those types of things, but yeah, it's always, you see the kid on the ice and even I've done it. I did it once in the last season we played, where I just had a lace come undone. I was wearing trying out a different pair of skates. So I was wearing, I think I was trying out a Bauer skate. And so the holder is a little bit shorter distance for tying. So I think my lace was hanging down a little. I think I stepped on it and it came undone, and I let a goal in. And then I said to the ref, I said, hey, look, I realized that that it was the lace I stepped on. I said, look, do me a favor. At the end of the first period, I'm going to skate hard down to the other end, and I got to fix something on my pad. So just give me an extra second or two. And he said, well, can you do it like quickly? And I said, yeah, pretty quickly. He goes, do it now. And then, of course, I just allowed a goal, and now I've got another team chirping me because, he lets in a goal and he's got to fit, he's doing the, was it the Tanya Harding with the skate lace, or was it Nancy Kerrigan? I can't remember which one, but you got the skate lace coming undone.
Yeah.
It was one who had the overzealous boyfriend, and maybe it was the other one who had the skate lace coming. Anyways, that's a whole nother sport altogether. That's forgot figure skating, episode 1, premiering shortly.
No, but I've done that too. I had that. I think we were in a tournament this summer, and kind of a little tournament team we took somewhere just for fun, and their goalie having issues with his skate laces, and we tried to fix them, and then he's having it again. And I look, he stepped on half of it, and I had a pocket knife in my pocket, and I told the ref, give me 30 seconds. I cut them all off and hand them to the parent on the bench. Said, I'll pay for the skate lace. Sometimes it's more headache than it's worth. He's 8. It'll be fine. And I've had to do that too. I tested, this is God, 7, 8 years ago, pre-GGN, I tested a concept for a toe lace, and you'll immediately know why this doesn't work. But the idea was they were going to fasten. Oh gosh, they somehow were fastening the lace through the bridge via zip tie, and the idea was that you could do it really quickly and everything like that. Well, first toe save, that zip tie immediately breaks.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, okay, so this is obviously not going to work. And I'm a genius for wearing this in a game. And it was pulling that off, and now I have one skate no toe tie and one the other. It was, and I know there are some goalies that don't wear toe ties, and I just said, well, here's an opportunity to test this idea out. And yeah, but within 10 minutes, I was like, oh God, I hate this. For all the reasons I explained about what I think the toe tie does in terms of rotation, I was like, this is something that I cannot stand. So, experiments but yeah, no, it's good. I'm actually glad that people are paying more attention to it. Again, back in when you and I were starting playing, it was those leather buckle straps. And did you know you need to cross the leather straps in front of your toe? That was a big thing, unless you're the Hawks goalie from Mighty Ducks. But that was it. Now there's a lot of options.
Yeah, exactly. And it keeps getting better and better, and it keeps making it easier and easier. And thankfully, it's makes things a little less strenuous on our knees and our hips, and we get to continue playing this game at some level, So, but that's the new and wonderful things that come out of it. So if we look at now, from there, a couple of newer things that goalies are doing, maybe I'll pull it back to a couple of older things. Looking back, have you got maybe a favorite piece of gear that we can talk about, or something that you loved so much you wish you could have back?
The one that got away, the one that was my first painted mask, and I don't know if I've told this story before. I think I have. Maybe you and I talked about it some other time, but was when I was starting to finally play for a non kind of house team, and my parents agreed to get me a goalie mask, and the mask itself was a Warwick mask right at the beginning of Gary Warwick Sr. making it out of his house. And my dad found a business card, or I found a business card in a local hockey shop, and the picture of like the Hayward, shark mask.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This is cool. Whatever this is, I want this. This is the mask. I was going to get a badger, but I was like, no, this is what I want. And so my dad ended up calling
another
Mr.
good
Warwick
name too.
Yeah, great. Those are great masks, and everybody had them. And I went to the store looking for that, and I saw this card. I was like, I don't know who this is. You have to call him, Dad. My father spoke to Mr. Warwick for about a half an hour, got off the phone, said, this guy knows what he's talking about. So yeah, I ordered you one of those, and so anyway, long story short, I said, well, I love, again, being a gear nerd, I love to have this painted Mom and Dad. And there were really, now they're everywhere with painters and vinyl wraps and stickers. There's all these different options in terms of designing your masks now. Back in the day, quote unquote, there weren't any. So we went to the mall, as the families did back then, to go, to dinner, as there were restaurants in malls, and that was the thing you did every week, at least a couple times. And there was a store that you passed on the way to our favorite Italian restaurant that was this air spray T-shirt store. You go in and they make, spray, your name or whatever on a T-shirt. My parents brought the mask. So we go by the store, and I've got my catalogs, and I've got my, goalie cards. And my parents said, okay, what design do you want? And I pulled out Stefan Fisse's Nordique's mask or card of it. We walked up to this guy's teenager who, paints T-shirts. My parents said, can you do this? And he said, I can give it a try. I've never done anything like this. I think I've done a motorcycle helmet once. Yeah, sure. So my parents said, great.
And this is the igloo. Dinner. This is the igloo one.
The igloo, yes, the igloo one. Yes, exactly right. So I said I want the igloo blocks and my local organization's emblem right on the forehead. And he said, I'll give it a shot. And my parents said, great. Went off to dinner. Came back about an hour-ish later. It's all done. He goes, you got to add some clear coat to it. It's $45 or something like that. So we absolutely, he said, I'm going to charge you for a couple t-shirts because I have so much fun doing this. This is so much, more fun than what I do day to day. We put some clear coat on and I had it and I loved that mask. And at some
it turned out.
It turned out great. It absolutely, I have one picture of me in that mask and I, somewhere along the lines, I'm sure my parents must have sold it to pay for, probably a new one. I probably grew out of it. I was relatively young, so I don't recall specifically whatever happened to it. And I'm sure it's long gone, but that's the one that kind of got away from me personally, that I'm like, man, it's just, every time I go into kind of a resale shop for sporting goods, I kind of look around like, is there any chance it's here? But it's probably not. And we're talking 25, 30 years ago.
Well, yeah. It's probably that's probably part of the island of garbage floating in the Pacific Ocean, the size of Texas right now. Right. It's probably right there with some of my old VCRs and tube televisions.
Now I have to ask a question for you in return. Is there a piece that you're particularly affectionate about, or?
Well, okay. So if I could do the same, if I could go back in time, I'd have never sold off my Coho Revolution Potvin glove and blocker. So I had that would have been, so the year I moved back from Prince Edward Island. So it would have been the 95-96 season. Of course, it was the height of that era of goaltending. Being a Toronto guy, he was definitely my favorite goalie at the time. And, just to get those gloves, and it was like the pro model. My mom was nice enough to shell out for those. And I didn't have the matching pads or anything like that. It was much less common, of course, back in those days, but I did have a pretty cool set of Brian's 90 SS pads at the time. But yeah, those Potvin gloves were pretty sweet. I often consider doing something custom, and I know there's when I saw the David Riddick set that he unfortunately never even got to wear in a game with the Maple Leafs, that sort of was a throwback to those. It sort of planted the idea maybe in my head of possibly doing that. But sometimes it's you get a little ahead of yourself, though. I don't play as much as I used to, and I'm currently rehabbing a knee injury that, if it doesn't really get better, it may severely limit my goaltending ventures moving forward. Yeah, so there's that. And for me, I think I've been lucky enough that I have experienced some pretty cool things. I don't have the want or the need of wearing an old school Brian's pad, because I owned a pair. I wore them for, I think, like 3 seasons. I've got those Revolutions. I rocked the 387 Coho, Jofa cage with the 390 helmet with the, if everyone remembers the big bubble, it was the sort of flat one, the flatter style one. The Florence Schelling, she was the one who brought that back to life. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and that was such a wild thing to wear. That came about so that would have been probably the 92, 93 year, or 93, 94 year. And like retail level certified approved goalie masks were just becoming a thing. And my father and we had gone out, we bought a Van Velden mask for me. I was so excited. I don't even know if I tried it on. I think we just grabbed it and headed home. And sure enough, when we got home, I put it on, and my mom had pointed out, and I don't know if it's the shape of my head or if it was the shape of the mask, but along the jawline and the chin, like it almost sort of cut short of the bottom of my jaw. And she was like, "You're not going out on the ice like that. Look, you can get hit in the," and it was like, all right, fine. So my dad took it back, and he just appeared a couple of days later. He's like, "Here, try this. This is like the guy at the shop said." So that's when I got the Jofa. So there was that. Yeah. Have you got one, like the piece of gear that got away from you, the thing you've been searching for?
Gosh, I looking back, I wish I would have had the opportunity to try more Bryans. I had a few pieces of Bryans over the years. And I always loved them, and I always end up just kind of wandering back to Heaton. And I really would have loved to have had opportunity to get kind of the early Lefebvre Coho kind of collaboration stuff. I had more of an opportunity there. I've since actually have a set. It's fun. I have a couple of sets of those that are in my office and in my garage, which is just filled with, I'm like all people like our age, right? Now that, now I can decide to spend my money on these things. And,
yes.
I'm always looking for people that are like, oh, these pads have been sitting in my basement for 20 years. There's actually a local goalie coach who had a set of Helite 10s the other day. He's like, I've had these sitting in my basement forever. They probably mean more to you than they do to me. I'm like, dude, absolutely. A couple of beers for those, I will absolutely take you up on that. Again, a lot of Coho stuff. And then even going older, I've got some like really kind of vintagey, like early Vaughn stuff with like the old, like the early labels and Bayard and some Aeroflex stuff. And I'm trying to go even kind of stuff like that. But really kind of my favorite era was really kind of the initial, very, very early Heaton years, the wave blockers.
Oh yeah.
To answer your question, like what is my, I'm gonna be lost for the word right now, but what is like my holy grail is probably like a flare or a block Heaton blocker. Like one of those, like those things are so rare, but I still have the black and white catalogs that showed them. And I think those are really hard to find. Those are probably my holy grail items.
Yeah. Those, the 1875s or the 1375s or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it, like I said, it's kind of hard for me to put a finger on it because just going through, I actually had some pretty neat gear. I also,
clearly
the same season I wore the Jofa helmet, I had a set of flat face sort of Pete Smith, Tom Barrasso Vic pads. Nice. I even got to wear a pair of those. It's pretty cool. I dropped a picture, I think, in one of the Facebook groups I belong to, and everyone sort of marveled at that. Was kind of the one thing that really stood out. And they were cool. They were the ones that had like that sort of suede finish. So they would get a little wet, but man, I had never felt anything until much more modern pads. I had never felt anything that really like would hit my shin. Like I'm down, I'd make a save, and like it hit you because your body can sense it. You almost feel it like absorbing into the pad and then bouncing right out. Like it was such a strange sensation from me coming from, like the Coopers or the DNR, the deer hair type stuff.
The deer hair filled pads.
Yeah. Where it was, where you really kind of felt it. And this was it was such a weird, I remember the first few times wearing them and just thinking that, maybe, I'm not sure. And the thing is too, like, if I want to wear something now, the position I'm in, if I want to wear something now, I just kind of order it for myself. It's like, hey, Sean, I think we need a demo of this.
Yep. There's a job perk for you. That's,
I knew someone who was thinning out their herd a little, and I actually picked up a GM12 catcher fairly recently. Not that I would ever take it out on the ice. I know there's some guys in some of the vintage groups that I belong to who love being out there wearing that gear, but it's like, no, thanks. No, thank you.
I like vintage cars, but I also enjoy power steering.
Yeah, well, exactly. No, that's definitely one of those things you consider. Maybe let's get off the gear just a little bit because goalies love talking goalies. There was a lot of goalie movement this off season. Maybe even a few goalies who may still find landing spots. Is there any any particular goalie storylines that you're looking to follow as training camps open up? And I guess in about a week and a half now.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's been a very interesting kind of summer and watching the movements and things like that. I'm excited to see what Darcy Kemper can do with a change of scenery. He's someone that everyone's been like, hey, he's really, really good, and people don't even really quite appreciate that. I wonder if being, in Colorado is going to be really, really good for him. Being behind that team, I think is only going to help him.
Of course.
And but with him, my concern always is, we see this over and over again. And as goalies, my feeling always is I tend to play better with more shots because I feel like I'm more in the game, probably in the game earlier, things like that, than if I face 20 shots and I'm got 3-4 minutes before I face anything and some broken up play. I'm hoping Darcy Kemper's success in Arizona can translate because he's playing behind a very different defense where he should be getting a lot less, red zone opportunities, these high chance opportunities. I'm hoping I'm really hoping for his sake that can translate. But obviously Freddie Anderson, same thing. I think change of scenery is good for him. We'll see kind of what happens there. I never know what to make of the Hurricanes, but obviously I think the big one that everyone's talking about, even especially today, because his gear and masks have just come out, is we'll see what Marc-Andre Fleury does in Chicago. And it's going to be interesting because he's just such a likable dude.
Who cheers against Marc-Andre Fleury? I mean, even Flyers fans at this point, have got to be over it a little, and you just want to pull for the guy. He's exactly everything that's good in the game. He's just got the right mentality. He's always got a smile on his face. So I definitely, I think what's going to be more interesting is this, just to see what happens with that team, before they even get to Fleury, because, they were pretty rough last year, and Taves is coming back, and they obviously pick up Seth Jones and Caleb Jones, and so they should be a much different looking team anyway. So, but you are right. I think that is the one that everyone's looking for. The Kemper thing is interesting too. I mean, he's had some injuries. So does he have to play a ton of games? Do they lighten his workload so that they do? And when you said Freddie Anderson, that's a team that really plays a much different style than the Maple Leafs. And I wonder, do his expected goals, go down significantly? And does the nuts and bolts of his stats, do they bear out even better, say with a team like Carolina than a team like Toronto? And conversely, this was a guy I talked about with Kevin Woodley, a guy who outperformed his expected goals, expected save percentage was Peter Mrazek, and now switching to a non-Rod Brind'Amour coached team in Toronto, will he, conversely be able to handle that sort of different load, in playing still a 1B. I think he's been a 1B goalie his entire career, going from Detroit to Carolina, and now with Jack Campbell. It's interesting to see. I did sort of predict two Vaughn goalies playing for the Maple Leafs with a mutual friend of ours, and I thought the outside chance was that they might even take a swing at Tuukka Rask, but I sort of doubted very much that, if it wasn't going to be Boston, it wasn't going to be anywhere. And I thought Mrazek would have been salary structure wise and the type of guy they needed, I thought would have probably been the best fit. I think I held out a little bit of hope for Jonathan Bernier that he might come back, because I think he never got a fair shake with the Maple Leafs. I think the team always was good, and an unfortunate injury for him that led to the Leafs basically, I think, losing 13 of 14 games down the stretch in one of those years. I think that was his first season. They missed the playoffs. It was the it was the sort of the famous, well, if you're in the playoffs by U.S. Thanksgiving, you're basically guaranteed to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's only happened. It's only happened 3 times in the last however many years, and twice it was Toronto. So they never cease to amaze me, you know.
Yeah, I would love your take on. I think just thinking more about just the dynamics of you mentioned a 1 and a 2 with Campbell and Mrazek. Is I still am continue to be, especially with the exit of Dreger, what's going to happen in Florida. So I'm a big Spencer Knight guy. I really like Spencer Knight, just kind of what he does and how he does it. And you obviously have seen what hasn't happened with Bobrovsky and that $10 million contract is, gosh, how much every time we've seen Knight, you're like, it's pretty promising. And so I'm really interested to kind of see how this year goes with the two of them. It's not like Bobrovsky got a huge amount of relief when Dreger left, because you got Knight right behind him.
Right.
So I'm interested to kind of see how that plays out. I don't know what your thoughts are on that situation.
I mean, it was definitely a bit of a head scratcher. The 2 young goalies that left that division, actually, well, not even that division, because the Panthers are in the Atlantic, but in that region, let's just say. So yeah, the Dreger thing was what? I mean, why not just pay the kid? I mean, unless he just really wanted to leave, but yeah, Bobrovsky obviously in a difficult spot. And then you've got, like you said, Spencer Knight, who's basically almost being told, yeah, we think you're the number 1 guy.
Yeah. And
then who knows, maybe it's a odd number year, even number year that Bobrovsky seems to, it's like 1 year good, 1 year bad. I think even in Columbus, he like had a Vezina trophy, didn't play that great. And then he followed up with another spectacular season, after that. So,
they have this huge department, right? This massive goalie department in Florida, or what the name is, with Luongo leading it, things like that. You're like, boy, you would think there'd be a little bit more consistency, and you just want it from you want it from Bob, and we'll
100%.
see. I mean, I think that I posted a while ago that he was actually even testing like Bauer pads. I think he's really trying to break it down to, find it again and trying everything. And he, so I don't know, I hope for his sake, because he seems like everything I've heard, and I've never spoken a word to him or anything like that, but people I know that know him have spoken glowingly about him. So I'm hoping for his sake, and probably for the sake of the GM and having to look at that $10 million number.
Oh, yeah.
He has something that resembles a decent season. But again, I'm also a huge Spencer Knight guy. So we'll see.
He looks like every indication is he should be good. It's just whether or not, like, if he's ready or if he can translate, the belief and the initial looks that we've had of him, if he keeps that going, and hopefully he does. The other one, like as I was saying, regionally, was the Nedeljkovic to Detroit that led to the Anderson signing. Again, another like really peculiar one where Carolina seems to do just strange things with their goaltending, and now the Red Wings seem to have in position, a pretty good, not super young, but a guy who's growing in the game. Certainly looked last year like he was going to be doing big things. And again, we'll see how it looks when you go from, again, playing for Rod Brindamore's team, which was able to lock down a Toronto Maple Leafs team for an entire period with a Zamboni driver playing goal. And when you go to Detroit, which is, and again, they're a year further in their development, but they're not going to be a great team. So again, another one of those things where it's like, we're going to keep an eye on that one and see how that goes. But, if you're Detroit and all it takes to get a good young goalie of that caliber is a 3rd round pick, I mean, that's that, and signing rights to a goalie that the team never even signed anyway. I mean, that just looks really good on them.
So let me ask you,
Yeah.
Going back to the Djokovic, what didn't make any sense to me when that went down was what's happened in the past couple of weeks with the Canes. When that all went down and he ends up in Detroit, the narrative that I put in my head is, okay, so their model must be we develop these players and then we sell them for assets or for, but we don't believe in them long term. We want something when it comes to a starting goalie, someone who's high up in our lineup. We want someone who's more seasoned. We want that. And then they offer sheet Kekkonen. Yeah. And then I'm like, well, hold on. You're talking about someone who is, in the upper half of your lineup who you're really paying for potential, and with a very limited sample size. And with the Djokovic, you had a pretty significant sample size in a long time in your organization, and you wouldn't put the faith in him there. It just seemed to be such a disparate thought process that I couldn't reconcile the two.
And they are paying Anderson more than he's getting in Detroit.
Right.
And again, you're right though. The offer sheet thing. I mean, I think the offer sheet thing just comes from a completely different place in management. Yeah. And I think, I made a short snippet about it, and it was like, it almost seemed like a bit of a troll job. I think that much was obvious, that it was at least on some level, a bit of a backlash for the Aho. But again, and I talked about it in the video I made, that the Aho signing at least made sense. It was a long-term deal for the right amount of money for a point-a-game player who's becoming a top center in the league. And this is a guy, I mean, say what you want. He looked great in the playoffs once he got in. Believe me, I got to witness it front and center, especially in Game 6 when he scored that OT winner to send it to Game 7 against Toronto. But he did play well, but he was a healthy scratch, don't forget. And even into the finals. Now, granted, they didn't do so well in the finals, and maybe if they had him, it'd be, but, ifs and buts and all of that. So, but you're right. That was a strange move to make, going $6 million for a player who probably should have been making like $2 million. So is there, are there some contract extension shenanigans to be expected on January 1st? But yeah, that it's tough to put a finger on that organization. I mean, they almost lost Brind'Amour because because of what they wanted to pay. And I think it came down to, he said, look, I'll take what I'm going to get. Just take care of my assistants and everything. And I think, and really he doesn't particularly owe that to him. Obviously he's a big part of the organization for a long time, guy that's been there forever. I would assume he has roots there, and he probably just didn't want to leave for those reasons, although there were many places he could go. Even if he sat out, I'm sure there'll be a spot or two that would open up, in between. So
I think the Brind'Amour thing was interesting. I loved how he said, take care of my staff, but he has made, I think it's like $50.5 million over the course of his career. One would hope that he's put some of that away so he can afford to say, look, I'll take a little bit less.
Yeah.
If you take care of my people. But again, it's every time there is a negotiation happening with a Hurricane player or coach, you're just like, and here we go. Who knows what the outcome will be? Case in point, the last three examples. So
I don't know. You could even go further. I mean, we're getting off the goalie track here, but the Warren Fogle scenario that saw him get moved for Ethan Bear. I think there was some weird contract stuff in the organization, and I think even Jordan Martinook, who ended up re-signing, I think that was the player. And even I think he had some stuff that was either tweeted out or something like that about alluding to possibly like moving on type of thing. But I'm pretty sure he actually did resign. So I guess they got that resolved. So it's going to be an interesting season, obviously back to the traditional schedule, back to the traditional divisions and the, not sleeping over for 3 nights in one city at a time to play a few games at once. It'll be interesting to see what happens when everything gets back to normal and we can stop having the debate of which is the weakest division. And everybody thinks the strongest division is the team is the division with the team that they're a fan of,
No doubt, of course, invariably.
Yeah, of course. Well, it'll still happen anyway. People will still find reasons to, they'll find reasons to, come up with something else that'll be a worthwhile hot take for them. And I'll probably just be there watching along and shaking my head to the whole thing. Maybe if we do go back to gear, I wanted to ask too. Do you have like a worst piece of gear story? Do you have like the thing that maybe you're like, what was I thinking, or what's the thing I did too much, or the bullet that you dodged?
Oh man, that's a fantastic question.
I'll start off with one if you want. So,
please. Yeah.
So coming out of Heat and 10 and those that era, there was the blockade, and there were all those things at CCM. But if you remember the initial X-Pulse line that came out, so, and I didn't necessarily have a problem with the pad. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the blocker, but X-Pulse to me is the worst catcher I think I've ever had on my hand, certainly at a pro glove level. And it had a strain in the break. It had a strange, I think it was the palm plastic sort of, as it sort of rounded down to the hand. It's sort of in this area. Sorry to the audio listeners that can't see me pointing sort of at the outer sort of butt of my hand. And it, as you closed, it sort of stuck into the break. So you almost couldn't get the glove. I remember actually using a boot puncher, a skate puncher, to sort of manipulate that after heating it up and things like that. So that's definitely one. And occasionally you get a few things you didn't like. I was never a big fan of the iTech X-Wing pad that had that strange Velcro panel on the front. Yep. I remember seeing that and thinking that wasn't that wasn't one. But the pads that I wore that I liked the least, which was my complete fault. I had ordered a custom set of pads from Bauer. This was previous to the Supreme, or just as the Supreme SE was a pad. Before they had done the Supreme SE2 and SE3. So I had ordered a pad, and I had asked for them to make the shin flat and make the boot flat, because I had worn the Supreme SE. And the one thing I had noticed that while dropping down, that the pad almost sort of had a crumple zone at the middle of the toe, where the pad almost kind of bent a little. So I asked them if they could stiffen it up and make that flat. And they said, well, we've never really made one like that before. And I said, okay, well, if you want to try, I mean, I'm willing to see how it goes if you think you can, but if you can't, don't. And they said, no, we'll give it a shot, and let's see how it works out. I got the pad, and I will say they accommodated all of the little custom things that I asked for to a T, completely perfectly. They actually wanted to do more, but I said, no, I want to wear your pad, just shorten this and do this here. I got the pad. Actually, even before I got the pad, they called me and they said, Dana, we're not really sure what happened when these were being made, but we were trying to get the foams right to make it flat and make it a little stiffer for you. The pad actually came out. It's almost 13 inches wide.
Oh.
And part of me wants to believe that. And part of me thinks they maybe saw the pad, saw what ended up being not a very good pad for me. And I think they wanted me to scrap it. But I just said, you know what? And so they offered to cut it down. They said, we can send it to you like this. And if you use it, you can send it back and we'll fix it. I said, no, just go ahead and just cut it down. Just fix it and send it to me whenever. I'm not in a rush. You know, I run a goalie store, a goalie department in a large store. Just send it to me. I've got gear. Don't worry. They send it to me. The pads look beautiful, completely beautiful. Really? And, but when I wore them, what they had done in the foam they had used made the front of the pad stick out so far past my shin. It was just, the pad was so almost thick. they were just, I couldn't get balanced in them, especially down on the ice. There was,
Okay.
the balance was way off, and the pad was, so if you take where the shin meets the boot, the pad always comes out a little, and then the boot kind of wrinkles in, then goes back out. There was actually like almost like an elbow, almost sort of cut into the boot of the pad where the foam went in. Like I could like slide a pencil in there basically, and it wouldn't fall out during the game because it would be stuck between the boot and the shin. So that was one that didn't work out very well at all. And I ended up sending them back, and we ended up just kind of saying, let's not worry about it. We'll attack it again another time. So, and I mean, shout out to Dave Monder and Todd Brown at the time for trying something, even though it didn't work. They were great about it. And they, like I said, everything else I asked for, they really accommodated. So there was that one.
Two good guys, really good guys.
Oh, definitely. And the other one was also, I did an Eagle pad. I believe it was a Eagle Century pad. And I said, I want the shin to be this length, and I want the thigh to be this length, and I want the boot to be this length, and I want to use the fusion side roll, and and the pad was just unplayable. The pad, I had done so much to it. It was too stiff because of the side roll. So it didn't move the way the pad was supposed to move. So it really didn't close as nicely as it should have, had I just left it. And there was just a couple other things. And it was like, so, and basically after that, I've sworn off of almost any customization. I'll just ask for a couple little tweaks here and there. And then, so now I just basically get the stock pad. I prefer to use laces. And for example, on my Brian's pads, I don't like the bridges hanging down. So they still punch holes for me and run the lace through with a tab on the front as a protectant for the toe. But other than that, I don't really get much else at all, because the stock gear is actually quite good,
Well, and that's something that the gear companies spend a tremendous amount of time in testing to kind of figure out what the quote unquote stock specs should be. And one of the things I've worked for several gear companies over the years in kind of previous roles. And I worked with one that was basically a bespoke gear maker. And I finding a way, kind of going back to your Eagle pads, to make sure that the specs flow. And you're picking out everything. You're hoping that they all kind of flow together. If they do, perfect. But then it's very easy to all of a sudden kind of set things up and they're fighting each other, like you were describing. And that's really challenging. And like to your point about stock gear now, I literally, I'm very, very lucky that like you have the opportunity to kind of work directly with a lot of these companies. When I order my own gear, I literally, I think, make one or two small custom requests. And it's usually like, I want a double T with skate lace, and I like really, really small internals inside my gloves. I just like a lot of control. So I usually will like put like intermediate internals, but then everything else is stock. Everything else is stock. Also partially because what I do and the feedback I'm trying to give to people that are following me about how the gear performs. I don't want to create all these really customized specs that work perfectly for me, but unless you order them, super customized, I want to give them something that's hopefully on a retail shelf, something very close to it. Yeah. Kind of my experience thereof. But again, having done all that, I'm like, wow, yeah, pretty much that's all my requests usually are. Is, hey, can you make the internals of the gloves a little bit smaller? If not a big deal. Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of double T. So, that's really the long and the short of mine. And then, kind of call it a day.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be doing a good job having you on if I didn't discuss another thing that I think you're fairly famous for, and that's your glove break-in technique.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And so let's maybe touch a little bit on that before we wrap things up, and just kind of, if we can, just go over a little bit about sort of how you came up with the idea, how it works. I recently watched a video of a young man trying to use your technique, mistakenly overheating his glove, and I can't imagine what his mother said when she saw it. But so take it away. the goalie gear nerd glove break-in technique.
Yeah, so it's always with, you know, a couple of disclosures that, yeah, no, I've written it on my site in very specific language, and there's a lot of like, you need to follow this exactly in order to ensure that, you know, you don't burn the glove and things like that. And if followed carefully, you're fine. But you just got to make sure you read through it. And the idea was really creating kind of a DIY break-in method, and a lot of it is trial and error, being around this stuff for decades. And working in stores and going, okay, what do we have available? What does everyone have available? And, you know, as you all know, it was a trick for a long time when we got our first skate ovens of like, oh, I'm just going to stick a glove in a skate oven because it's not going to get that hot. And then it would give you some ability. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do with the glove is essentially kind of create a crease in the foam. Mm-hmm. And so kind of with that idea, the way to do that is with heat and with moisture. And so, in a very high level, what I do is and recommend is taking a very hot washcloth, you know, just soak it in hot water.
Yep.
Jamming inside the glove, putting that glove on a cooking pan, on tin foil, on that cooking pan, away from all the heating elements, inside an oven up to 180 degrees for really duration of time. It's 7 minutes, 11 minutes. It doesn't tremendously matter.
Right.
You know, you want it to everything kind of heat up enough. And then once you get the glove out, I recommend using clamps to actually then compress the glove, because now you've gotten the internals are moist and they're warm. And so there's really an optimal atmosphere or environment for that foam to then fold. And then clamp.
So the hot cloth goes inside the glove where your hand
inside the palm. Exactly right. Okay. And then the compression, and let it dry like that. And you could replicate that subsequently if you want to do kind of the short version of it. If you've done that, and this is, gloves now come so broken in now. I haven't had to do this. Yeah. But there's one, for example, I am still kind of breaking in. I need to do this, is when I get off the ice, I get home, start taking things out of my bag, I'll actually grab the clamps and I'll clamp it down. I don't go through the whole everything else. It's still wet from me getting off the ice. Probably not warm still, but I'll just go ahead and just kind of a follow-up. And I find that if you do that initial treatment and you do maybe one or two on a really stiff glove of those extra treatments and just let them clamp closed, you're good to go. You create that seam, it's be nice and floppy. Get
that nice snap, finger to thumb.
Exactly.
I sort of did go through it. I haven't tested it out myself yet on any gloves. It seems to me, using a limited amount of moisture, because my pal JT, who I'm sure you are well versed with as well, he likes to completely soak the glove, and I know people who get good results out of that. It's that one's kind of not my favorite. He and I have even talked about it before. He'll be a future guest, and we'll probably get into his method as well. I think just the way yours seems to be a good way to use some moisture without having the need to so thoroughly dry the glove. Seems like it would work. I have a third that I like to use. I've never really done anything wet, anything moist in a glove. I may actually try it out where I use my method. I may add your washcloth. I will use, and essentially it works out to almost the same. Like, I'm still using a skate oven. It's still about 180 degrees. And so what I like to do, and also I can't take full credit. I'll give a shout out to my buddy, Jimmy Campbell. This was something that he had originally showed me. He was breaking in a V1, a second edition V1. So the Kippersoft, what became sort of known as the Kipper spec glove. So second edition V1. And he brought it into the shop. We heated it up, and he actually took a lacrosse ball into the palm, into the very deepest part of the palm. Basically, as you close, you're wrapping the glove around the ball, and then just clear tape. And again, your clamps, obviously, that's another good one, and clear tape around it. And we'll just leave that for about 3 hours. And so the heat, of course, to develop that crease and develop a little bit of a bend there. And then the ball in the palm, because I don't want it to smush. Also, I'd like to have a nice round sort of profile to the curve, to the close. And that seems to yield some pretty good results for me as well. So I'm very close to what you do. And I'll often just give a heat for a few minutes for some customers who want it. And then I'll tell them, I said, I have a couple of tricks that I do. And that's one of them. I'll occasionally, because I know how to do it, because I understand the mechanisms of lacing inside a glove. Sometimes I'll find a long knot and I'll just undo it and back it off a little. And occasionally I've gone into gloves and actually relaced a small portion, hidden the knots inside, and then no one really knows. But so I've done that with a couple. It's a long process. I shouldn't even be talking about it because I don't want people coming in to have that done.
That's a service you now offer.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Now, that's now canon. I think we would say. Now, and I'm a single tee pocket guy. I love the feel of the puck hitting the bigger spine in. And I think I've found occasionally that on a double tee glove, sometimes it's, to me anyway, it's just too much pocket. Now I know the double tee, it offers a sort of a bit of a bigger basket. It's even larger. But I think some manufacturers haven't quite figured out how to do their double tees quite the right way. And sometimes if they're laced down too tight, or if the base of the tee is too wide, I think sometimes those can get in the way a little bit. But again, it's glove to glove. Sometimes it'll make that difference.
Yeah. And it's, for me, I think you're right. You definitely get a different feel with the single tee, because you really have mostly that puck is hitting that spine versus the laces. For me, and I again, in my previous kind of roles, and I'm sure you've had this too, I would have customers that would say, I want a pocket that's like 3 inches deeper than standard.
Yeah.
And I'll go, if the puck is hitting your pocket and coming out, there's a fundamental problem with the glove. If it's in the pocket, it's staying there.
Yeah.
Typically. I prefer the double tee for visibility purposes. I am very much someone that will do the classic Rene backhand over my face, kind of first baseman style, catching the puck. And I will literally look through my pocket as it's at the last second as it kind of enters, if it's coming right for my eyes. And really as I cover, be able to look straight down and hopefully get some glimpse of the puck and say, because I tend to, as of late, have been ordering really dark gear, which I might be changing for next year. And so being able to kind of discern, oh yeah, the puck is in there. I like that part of things. Functionally, is there a massive difference? I don't know that they've been quantified or how you would.
Be very difficult to measure.
Right.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. You're completely fooling yourself, though. You're totally delusional that seeing the puck through the glove helps you. So, but that's okay. that's on you, pal.
I said.
I know goalies do say that, and I'm kidding, of course, but I don't think I've ever thought of myself while making a glove save, geez, I just wish I could see through this tee so I could guide the puck in. But like, who cares if it works? It works.
I'm a pretty short goalie, so I tend to have a lot of things. A lot of pucks are really eye level with me. So
that's important then to get the glove up in front.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time. I want to thank you again for joining me. Maybe give yourself a minute or two, and we'll let you do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. Let everybody know how and where they can find you, and maybe if you've got anything up and coming that you want to sneak preview.
Oh, well, no. First and foremost, thanks for the time. Again, the biggest lesson and probably the greatest joy that I've gotten out of Goalie Gear Nerd is when I thought it was going to be 40 or 50 or 30 or 10 people that had this similar obscure obsession that I do over goalie gear, finding out that actually that amount of people is actually much larger, and being able to share that is kind of cool, because again, it's it's awesome to be able to find that community, and that's one of the really good things about social media, and it has by far been the biggest joy with me and having created Goalie Gear Nerd and getting to interact with people that share this passion. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on and
Absolutely.
and again sharing in that passion. Yeah, Goalie Gear Nerd is on primarily on Instagram and Twitter. We do have a website, goaliegearnerd.com. There is more to come in terms of ways to kind of access the content. The website, if you're really into like those old catalogs, like I was talking about, we have a library of digitally imaged catalogs from a myriad of decades. I've got a lot more that need to get imaged. They're free to view and download. There's a lot of things like the glove break-in method, some longer form things. And I'm going to be doing a lot more on the site soon. I had the opportunity to interview Steve Cash, USA Hockey's Paralympic goalie.
Cool.
I'm going to be doing some more things that are not the standard, content you kind of see out there. So more to come on that. But really, again, Instagram and Twitter is where you see probably the biggest volume of my content. Always feel free to reach out to me there. I try to respond to every message. Not always great about it, but man, I try. So, but sincerely, for you, for anyone listening, for anyone that follows, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It's a tremendous amount of fun, and it's, like I said, awesome to get to interact with people that share this passion.
Yeah. And we'll probably do this again sometime in the not too distant future, whenever there's some interesting, juicy little tidbits that come out. Maybe we can get together again and we'll talk more gear.
I sincerely hope so. Again, reach out anytime. I'd love to do any kind of quick drop in.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
All right, buddy. Take care.
You too.
My parents brought the mask in. I had my catalogs and hockey cards, and they said, "Well, what would you want?" I said my name.
Don't worry, we'll take it out.
All right. So I'll edit that, or
You go right ahead. Just pick it up wherever you want. Yeah.